All righty, we are 16 days away from camp, and the season of lists is still upon us. The top 10 Texans before the 2025 season. Let's embrace debate, love, and hate here in the locker room.
Yeah, it's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it. Hey, locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too. Landlocked, got the game in the headlock. Localize every time, can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top two and we not too. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days, opinions to give. We got take.
We're almost there. We're almost getting through the rough time. The season is almost upon us. And yes, the season starts when camp starts, which is 16 days from today, 8:30 a.m. Nick Caserio will go under the tent, assuming that they have the same setup. He will address what they've done in the offseason. He'll talk about the fluid process that was, what the expectations are. He'll use the word fluid probably 45, 46 times in about a 27-minute span. And the season will finally be upon us. We will get to watch the Houston Texans practice. And from there, we'll go through yet another season. We have finally gotten through almost the dark days of June and July. And I appreciate y'all for riding with me here in the locker room. And we all know, and shout out to Bob Tack for sponsoring the video. We'll talk about them in a second. But we all know that this is kind of the season of lists. This is the time where you get the list. There's not often a lot of news going on. So you got to embrace the lists. You've got to embrace the debate. You've got to embrace the hate. And with that said, the locker room, 4 years strong, presents the top 20 Texans heading into the 2025 season. And this is going to be a controversial list. I'm actually going to go from 1 to 10. And the reason I'm going from 1 to 10 is because I asked this question earlier in the offseason. I asked the question, who's the best player on the Texans? And out of 130 responses, the same guy was mentioned at the very top. So it's no fun to go from 10 to 1 when we all know who number 1 is. It's more fun to kind of work our way down the list and discuss who the top 10 players are. Now, these rankings, and shout out to everyone in the chat, these rankings are based on a couple of things. They're based on best optimal on-field performance, in my opinion. And they're based on observations that we've seen, whether it be from the Texans' actions, words, or the brief time that I was able to observe what was going on the field during minicamp and OTAs. So that's what we'll base these rankings off of. And without further ado, the best player on the Texans heading into the 2025 season. And you can mark this because there's a chance that we look back on this and say, wow, there's a chance that happens. But the number 1 player on the Houston Texans right now who is better at his job than anyone else is Derek Stingley. Derek Stingley, from the end of the 2024 season or 2023 season to now, has been one of the best players in the NFL at his position. It's not even close. And what makes this even more impressive is after he got injured again and he missed the month plus, you were just wondering, okay, I mean, this was the main concern about Derek Stingley when Nick Caserio selected him with his first round draft pick as general manager. Like, what are we doing here? Like the concerns about staying healthy, they reared their ugly head. But ever since then, Derek Stingley has been one of the best corners in the game, and he's been paid as such, and nobody on the Texans has been as good at what they do with Derek Stingley. I don't know what the next level is for Derek Stingley. I've said this a couple of times, like, what's next? He's a young player. He's heading into his 4th year in the league. But I mean, if he just continues to do what he's doing, you're fine. That's very rare where a guy is in his 3rd year and you're saying, well, how much better can he really get? And maybe that's a little bit dramatic. Maybe there's times where he gets challenged more. Like, is it as simple as he begins to kind of follow guys around and shadow a little bit more? Because that always seems to be like the biggest knock on Derek. Oh, he doesn't. Well, we've seen him do it a couple of times. I mean, it's not like he's not capable of it. There's been some really good corners over the course of NFL history that don't follow around the other receiver. If you're taking away half the field, then I would say that's a pretty impressive feat. But I don't know how much better Derek Stingley gets, and there's really nobody that's even in the conversation right now based on what we've seen and what's ahead. I don't know how anyone can even discuss. And this is why when I got 120, 130, whatever responses to the question about who the best Texan was, everybody said Derek Stingley, because that's the reality of the situation. Derek Stingley's the best Texan right now. He is better at his job than anyone else on the team. So I think most people can agree with that. The real question is, what does the next level look like? That's where the conversation about Derek Stingley gets fun. You're not going to get, in a world of pushback, social media pushback, YouTube pushback. In a world of pushback, there's little to none when it comes to saying that Derek Stingley is the best player on the team. Doesn't happen. So what does the next level look like is a more valid question than even trying to bring anyone to the forefront. Number 2, this is where it gets interesting, and this is where the debate does kind of intensify. We all agree, I think, that Derek Stingley is the best player on the Texans at the moment. Who's number 2? Who is number 2 on the Houston Texans? Who is the second best player on the Houston Texans? Some may say Nico Collins. Not a bad answer. When Nico Collins is on the field with C.J. Stroud, he's one of the best receivers in the league. Top 10 for sure. Some would maybe say Joe Mixon based on what he did last year. Danielle Hunter maybe gets into the discussion. But I'm going with Will Anderson. I think the number 2 best player on the Texans right now, when you factor in the way he stops the run, the way he gets after the quarterback, I would say the number 2 best Texan is Will Anderson. That would be my number 2. Show Killer is in the building. This is the live stream type stuff. Shy now. So number 2 is Will Anderson for me. Nico Collins seems to be a popular answer, and I don't look. I'm not countering that too much. I know Will hasn't completely stayed healthy, but I do factor in that Nico Collins pretty much every year has missed some time. So I do factor that in, but I'm not passionately pounding the table for Will Anderson. I just think Will Anderson's got a completely different level that we haven't seen. And you look at his offseason, he worked out with Myles Garrett. He's kind of the face of their swarm. I thought it was impressive last year after the season where he said, we can't lose to teams like the Jets and the Titans if we want to get where we get. I think based on what I saw from Will Anderson this offseason, based on what we've seen from him before, I just forecast that he has a massive, massive next level that he hasn't even gotten to yet. So I would say that Will Anderson would be number 2 for me. Now, what does the next level look like for Will Anderson? He's got to start sacking the quarterback more. I know that there's deeper evaluation, and it's not just about sacks. But if Will Anderson is truly, and he knows this, you got to finish. 11 sacks last year is solid. No one's going to knock that, but he's got to get up to that 15 type of range. He missed 3 games last year. So maybe he needs to stay more healthy. 11 sacks, good. But we need to see Will Anderson get to like 15, the 15 sack range. And I would not bet against it at all. So my number 2 is Will Anderson. In the chat, Nico easy, Ja'Cory says. Sam says, when healthy, Nico or Will. Fred says that we have a Super Bowl caliber winning defense this year. I don't remember the last time a team had the undisputed best edge and corner duo. And we'll hear from the other half of those duos as this list goes on. I can 100% assure you of that. But it does seem like if we took a poll, most people would say Nico number 2. I say Will Anderson, but again, can't go wrong with Nico Collins. It is the locker room. We're counting down on the season of lists, which is winding down. The top 10 Texans right now. Number 1, we have Derek Stingley. Number 2, we have Will Anderson. Shout out to everyone in the chat, including HDAV Traveler. You ain't never hate. Swarm. AKA Ajax out there doing his thing. Primetime V asks, what does it say about Stroud if he's not a top 5 player on the team? Stay tuned. But if he's not, that means he has a pretty good team around him, I would say. Because you feel pretty good about CJ Stroud. Some feel better than others, but you feel good about him. But it would say he has a pretty good team around him, and he didn't have a very good season last year. And he has an offensive coordinator who, regardless of how we feel about old Nick, you never seen him call a play. He has an offensive line that was ass last year. So there's a lot of stuff that he doesn't necessarily control, but really what it says is they got a hell of a team around him. If that's the case, he's definitely not number 3, because number 3, most people thought Nico was number 2. I got Nico at number 3. Hard to argue with what he does when he's on the field with CJ Stroud. They obviously he is the straw that stirs the drink when it comes to explosive plays on offense. Last year, Nico Collins, in a year in which he was injured, he still had 68 catches on 99 targets. He broke 1,000, and he had 7 touchdowns. And there was plenty of meat left on the bone when it came to that. He earned the extension, and quite frankly, it's one of the better bargains that Nick Caserio has put together. Now, the production beneath him, and I don't know if there's a snowball effect to this, but last year with Diggs and Dell, you weren't getting much from Tank Dell more times than you were. Matter of fact, most of his games were very, 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 very meh before the Kansas City game when he ended up getting injured. So Nico Collins really wasn't getting a lot of help in the pass game. So how is this new receiving core going to help him out? And if they aren't able to produce, does that mean that Nico gets more attention? Last year, Nico Collins against man coverage, I think he was top 2 in every category. He was also really good against zone. He was top 5, I think. But against man coverage, I've always thought this was fascinating. I don't know if y'all think this is weird or not. And maybe it's a really small sample size, but it does feel like there's a lot of times where teams are not really giving Nico Collins a lot of attention. I know a lot of Texans fans, a lot of media types, a lot of NFL media types will say Nico Collins is underrated. Nico Collins is underrated. And it depends who you listen to. It depends what comes across your timeline. I think Nico Collins is a solid top 10 receiver. And when he's on the field, there's stretches where you can put him in the top 5. You put him higher if you want, if you really want to nitpick and embrace debate. But it doesn't feel like defenses really give him the attention that a lot of really good receivers get. And I don't quite understand why, because it's not like Bobby Slowick is doing anything crazy to move him around. But it doesn't feel like he's covered like a really, really good receiver should be covered. A lot of times it's like, why are they still leaving him in man? Why are they not sending someone over the top on Nico Collins? It feels that way a lot, but he's been able to produce. I do wonder though if the other receivers can't step it up and provide CJ Stroud with a secondary option, if maybe Nico Collins, maybe that changes and we start to see defenses kind of cover Nico Collins a little bit different. 1,000 yards last year, despite missing all that time, solid as hell. Most people say 2, I say 3. Number 4, Danielle Hunter. Pro Bowler last year. It's unfortunate he didn't get in initially. Max Crosby did. He probably should have done some more Instagram videos. But Danielle Hunter last year, 12 sacks. He played every single game last year. Danielle Hunter did. Very good against the run. The highest paid free agents of the Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans era, and he just got an extension, which keeps him under club control for the next 2 years. Danielle Hunter, solid. Really, really solid. I mean, two of your top 4 guys are edge guys, both of them double-digit sack guys. Danielle Hunter, he actually said, and I thought this was weird, he said that he actually got stronger this offseason. Yeah, I added some muscle and got stronger. I don't know how the hell that happens, but okay. All right. Whatever you say, man. I'm not questioning it because it did look that way. But that's crazy that was something that Danielle Hunter was focused on. Here's the picture. This was minutes after he said this. The guy said he needed to add 5 pounds of muscle. And I think he probably did. But here was Danielle Hunter. Massive human being. Said he needed to get stronger. So number 4 is Danielle Hunter. Number 4 is Danielle Hunter. Cebu saying, I'll be pissed if he has to miss 8 games. I think you're probably talking PEDs. I can promise you this. This guy's peed in a cup a few times. That if I were in charge of drug testing in the NFL, that guy would pee in the cup many times. Danielle Hunter. I always think it's funny when the guys get the drug tests after they have good performances. Always find that interesting. Danielle Hunter played every game last year. Every game last year. Number 5. Another guy who missed some time last year and was clearly missed. Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon comes in at number 5. 4.1 yards per carry last year. Turning chicken-ish into chicken salad a lot of the times. 11 touchdowns. Most disappointing part of Joe Mixon's game last year was only 36 catches. That's unacceptable. And that's a Bobby Slowick thing. That's a Bobby Slowick thing, and that was very frustrating to watch.
Damn it, Bobby.
But Joe Mixon, number 5 on the list. They missed him. Quite frankly, I don't know that they've addressed the depth enough to where they're not dependent on him. But we also don't know about Nick. So what will Nick Caley do? And that's the question with Joe Mixon. Will his skills be maximized with the use minimized? You got to keep these guys fresh. Is this kind of the age Joe Mixon's creeping up on? I think he just turned 28. Is that right? I know his birthday was a couple weeks ago. Yeah, he's 28. He just turned 28 years old. You start creeping up on 30, and the running back position gets more and more kind of minimized. But Joe Mixon, how will they use him? And good God, use him in the pass game. That'll be one of the things that I really judge Nick Caley on. I know that you got some other guys that you want to get the rock to, but you have got to get some work out of Joe Mixon. You got to get it going. So that's our top 5 right now. Where have I screwed up? Let me know. CJ Stroud, not there yet. Number 1, Derek Stingley. Number 2, Will Anderson. Number 3, Nico Collins. Number 4, Danielle Hunter. And number 5, Joe Mixon. The next 5 coming up, and there's going to be some serious debate on that. But first, I want to talk about someone who's a definite number 1, and they're sponsoring this video. That's Bob Tech. Safety supplies, they're not something that you should half-ass, quite frankly. And a lot of these large companies, they do it. They got AI customer service. They raise prices. And quite frankly, it's just like auto pay. A lot of times you have auto pay and you just get comfortable But safety is not something you want to get comfortable with. You want to spend less. You want to get more. And that's why you use BobTech. Locally owned and operated, 45 years industry experience. You can text the number on the screen right there, 409-744-8225. You can go to bobtech.com. You can even call the number 24/7, no minimum. They're going to deliver to you locally for free. They'll deliver anywhere else. Gloves, FR, coveralls, protective clothing, PPE, spill control supplies, trucking, maritime, all of that. They got it for you 24/7. Anything you want, they can get. Hell, they can even get your team hydrated. Great prices, unmatched service. They specialize in being local customer service. As I said, Bobby's been in the industry for 45 years, locally owned and operated. Check them out. Quit letting these big companies win. Any local business that needs safety supplies, give these guys a call. They got great prices, unmatched customer service, free local delivery, 24/7. Visit bobtech.com. They got you covered. All right, so we have the top 5 now. The next 5 on the list. Let's get the quarterback in there. CJ Stroud. Look, there's a number of ways that you can look at CJ Stroud not being on the top 5 of my list. He obviously would have been on the top 5 heading into last season. He would have been in the top 5. But Daniil Hunter wasn't on the team before last season, and neither was Joe Mixon. So I think you've improved the top end talent of the roster. And I think that's something that Nick Caserio and D'Amico Ryans deserves credit for. Now we can sit here and we can have the ongoing discussion about whether or not CJ Stroud regressed last year or whatever. But the reality is he's lower on this list this year than he was last year because they've increased the top end talent. You brought in a guy who's arguably a top 10 running back, and you brought in a guy who's a top 8 edge, maybe even higher in either scenario. So you've improved that. Now, what does that mean? That means that the dependency on CJ Stroud is probably a little bit lower. So the CJ, say it with me, drink, the CJ saves all butts formula, it does not exist. You have an elite defense, and you have a wide receiver who's near the top, and then you have a running back who's near the top when he does well. Now, it's hard, though, when you're talking about a quarterback because while he might not be fully dependent for success, his success is kind of dependent on other things. I mean, they could be a good enough football team to where the offense can struggle, the defense keeps them in a game, and CJ Stroud's able to pull the rabbit out of the hat, Mark Vandermill yelling Houdini and all that stuff, and he figures it out. That's not the ultimate recipe for success. The offensive line is going to have to be better, and the offensive entire functionality is going to have to be better.
Captain Kirk has arrived.
They brought in Captain Kirk.
Captain Kirk has arrived.
Christian Kirk, how's he going to look? They drafted 2 wide receivers. They got a new OC. Nick. We don't know what that offense is. We don't know how it fits him. So there's a lot of question marks about CJ Stroud. The good news is the fact that he's not in the top 5, it tells you that you have a good football team. There's been some quarterbacks that maybe they weren't either put in the best position to succeed or they weren't tip-top elite, but when the teams around them are built well, they're able to have success. That was the biggest complaint about the Deshaun Watson era. It was, man, he has to save all butts. This sucks. This is not a formula for success. And I don't rewrite the history of Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson was one of the better quarterbacks in the league before he kind of fell off, got materialistic, and then had all the off-field stuff, and then wanted to force his way out of town. So I think that the CJ Stroud thing at number 6, I think it's appropriate, and I think it speaks to the top-end talent along with all the question marks that are had about CJ Stroud. Saraz says 9 Sundays till football. Incorrect, my friend. 2 Sundays till football. Training camp counts. And a lot of you might not be at training camp. Right here in S&L, we give you play-by-play updates. You all know this. This is where you get separated. It's easy to fake it during the offseason, but when it comes to reacting, giving you boots on the ground analysis, especially during practice, we got you covered. So it might not start for a lot of people. Game days are a little bit different. I agree. But it's 2 Sundays, my friend. You need to take, speaking of CJ Stroud, take 7 off that 9. And you got to throw back 2. We got you covered there. So number 6, CJ Stroud. Number 7, Kamari Lassiter. Kamari Lassiter from the jump was someone that DeMeco Ryans and company felt very comfortable putting as their number 2 corner. And say what you want about him, Steven Nelson, those are pretty big shoes to fill based on what he gave DeMeco Ryans in year 1. He was they do not get to the playoffs. They do not win that playoff game without Steven Nelson. I know he's kind of rewrote the history and talked about this, but the way that he battled it out, the way that he gutted it out, he's a loon. I've always said that, but I've always given him his props regardless of what Steven Nelson has to say about it. He's all over the place, though. But Kamari Lassiter's better. And that was kind of surprising. We kind of wondered, is Jeff Okudah going to be CB2? Is Henderson going to be CB2? Almost forgot his name. Rightfully so. But Lassiter was out there. The 40 time be damned. He was solid. There were some ups and downs. But I think Kamari Lassiter is gonna establish himself as one of the better young corners in the league. I think there's a reason why he and Stingley are regarded as the top CB duo in the world, in the NFL. And Kamari Lassiter, number 7. This is a 2nd round pick. I don't even know. Was this their first choice at corner? Who knows? There was a run on corners before Kamari Lassiter. I know some people had Kool-Aid because they wanted Kool-Aid McKinstry. It was going to be the bit, Kool-Aid McKinstry. There were some people who wanted the guy that was faster than he looks. Kind of an inside guy, too.
Race car!
Cooper DeJean. They ended up getting Kamari Lassiter. I don't think they regret it. Quite frankly, I think they might like him enough to where that would have been their pick no matter what. But Kamari Lassiter comes in at number 7 on the list. He's an absolute beast. Next one, number 8. This is a new addition to the defense. This could go a number of ways. But C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Thank God they traded for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Thank God they got him in as a throw-in on the Kenyon Green deal because Jimmy Ward, I know a lot of people were kind of frustrated with him. We don't know what's going to happen with him. Let's stay tuned to that. Probably be one of the first questions DeMeco gets asked. But C.J. Gardner-Johnson coming off the best year of his career. He was a top 15 safety in football with PFF, depending on how you look at it. Although they do kind of have a weak spot when it comes to inside corners. But safeties, usually they do a pretty good job of judging them. But C.J. Gardner-Johnson comes in. He's got a chip on his shoulder. He says he's moved on from the Eagles, and then he says he hasn't. Don't know. He's kind of a wild card. I don't know how they're going to handle some of the bulletin board material that he may provide, but he's going to be exciting. And quite frankly, if you're a safety, based on what we've just said, and we're listing the best players on a good roster, this isn't some crappy roster. This isn't the 2021 Texans, 2022 Texans. But when you're listing a safety and we're 7 players through and 2 of the guys have been edge guys, they were in the top 4, and 2 of the guys have been corners, and you also have one of the better defensive minds in the game leading you around, you can't ask for better surroundings than what C.J. Gardner-Johnson's going to have around him. He's also got some young talent next to him, Kalen Bullock. So C.J. Gardner-Johnson, some may question him. I know Philadelphia's kind of rewritten history. I'm old enough to remember. It wasn't that long ago. It was like 4 or 5 months where he was kind of like looked at as the guy who brought the edge to that Eagles team. I remember it. He's got some good surroundings here, and maybe he's got the chip on his shoulder. This is a loony wild card that I'm very interested in seeing. Paul Axel says, I just hope he's fully committed. Why wouldn't he be? I think he's committed. I don't know if he would not be committed. He's ready to go. But yeah, it was well done by Nick. And I thought this was going to be a luxury. The the safety position. But I mean, it's still not terrible depth. But if the Jimmy Ward thing had happened, and some people don't feel great about Jimmy Ward starting, I think he's underrated. But if you didn't make this move, then who knows where you're at. Now, CJ Gardner-Johnson was probably going to get cut. So maybe you could have gone out and got him, but you got to think he probably would have found a team before then. But yeah, it was definitely done very well by Nick. Hugh asks, when does the first O lineman come in at? Spoiler alert, never. This is a top 10 list. So we will not have any offensive linemen on this list. Number 9. Now let's go back to what my requirements were when it came to making this list, because this one's important. And you can already tell these next two are going to embrace debate, love and hate. But these rankings are based on the best optimal on-field performance in 2025 and early observations. In other words, what we've seen from minicamp, OTAs, and maybe some of their actions. Number 9. Shout out to Old School No Limit.
Captain Kirk, can you sing me? Captain Kirk, I want to have your baby.
Christian Kirk. Christian Kirk is number 9. From the jump. There's no off time. There's no gaps when it comes to this content. And sometimes the fluid discussion leads to like some good discoveries. Sometimes it leads to me eating crow. But from the jump, I said the most exciting thing about Nick Caley is how he's going to handle slot receivers. This was before they made a single move. And they traded for Christian Kirk, didn't even want him to hit the market, much like they did with Joe Mixon last year. So they have a really good track record with seeing players who teams don't want and just saying, okay, guy, you are not getting on the market. I am going to trade for you so that you don't get released. They did that with Mixon last year. They did it with Kirk. So obviously they see something. You factor that in with what we've said about Nick Caley and him using multiple slot receivers, and you have that. Also, based on what I saw in minicamp and OTAs, it seems like CJ Stroud likes throwing to this guy out of the slot. And it was a small sample size, but even when it wasn't CJ Stroud, this guy's doing some work in the slot. That flag route, lovely. Cross the middle, lovely. He dropped one pass, and it was arguably CJ Stroud's best pass of the offseason. I think Christian Kirk is going to work out pretty well in this offense. Now, I think long-term, I think Jalen Noel might end up being the face of this draft for the Texans. I think he might end up being the best player and one of C.J. Stroud's best targets. But I can't put Jalen Noel in the top 10 at the moment. He's right there on the edge. Top 13, top 14. Because he's strong, he's fast, and he's also one of these slot guys that I know Nick Caley's going to use. We asked Caserio about using multiple slots. I think they're going to do it. But I think Christian Kirk is going to, again, I'm not forecasting injuries. That's definitely going to be the case for number 10. I think Christian Kirk's someone to look out for. Now, he's only played 20 games the last 2 seasons, which if you do the math, that means he's missed 14 games in the last 2 seasons. Now, one of them was a collarbone, and it hasn't been anything serious, but that's after playing 5 years and just missing 9. So he's going to have to stay healthy, but this thing isn't based completely on predicting health. I think with this offense, with what C.J. Stroud is good at, and I think he's very underrated throwing the guys out of the slot. It was one of his strengths at Ohio State. I think Christian Kirk in the top 9. Am I putting him on my fantasy team? Probably not. But look out for Christian Kirk and look out for those young receivers too. It wouldn't shock me if one of those young guys or both of them kind of canceled out the production. But right now, Jalen Noel missed a decent chunk of minicamp, so we didn't really get to see him and CJ get it going. And Christian Kirk was out there. So this is based on early observations. This can change very easily. Brandon says, is Jaden Higgins Drake London 2.0? I think it's a way better comparison than Nico. I think he has that basketball player look. I think it's a way better comparison than Nico. He had some nice flashes too. Again, one of those receivers, maybe you creep him up to the top 10, but based on what I saw, I put Christian Kirk. So we'll see what happens. And I do think the slot receiver is the perfect counter towards bad offensive line play. And that's the other thing that I like about it. Tom Brady a lot of times made his offensive line look better. Josh McDaniels kind of had his hand in it. Nick Caley was there for a large chunk of that. And a lot of that had to do with slot guys, multiple tight ends, all that. So we'll see how Christian Kirk looks, but he's number 9. This is the most controversial pick. And y'all know that I've blown all my money on the penny stock. Last year, the stock was expensive. This year, it's penny stock. And I'm buying a lot of it, very low. Number 10 is Christian Harris. If I would have said this last year, some of you may have said, well, he should be higher up on the list. I think a disservice was done to him last year with the way they handled his injury. But if you look at what he looked like at the end of the 2023 season, if you look at what is around him, what his motivation is, which is he's in a contract year, and you look at the position he plays, and the fact that D'Amico Ryans is now talking about how excited he is to see him on the field for training camp, I think Christian Harris could go from being one of the biggest disappointments last year to one of the most pleasant surprises. Christian Harris. He's fast. He's one of their better coverage linebackers. He's one of their better run stoppers. And quite frankly, there's been nothing that has happened on the field that has led anyone to think that he's not capable of doing what he did a couple years ago. Matter of fact, his surroundings have improved. He didn't play with Kamari Lassiter and Danielle Hunter. He got to sit back and watch last year. So I'm buying the Christian Harris stock. And I think as far as like the optimal performance, which is what I base this exercise on, his optimal performance is way up there. It is way up there. We saw it. We saw it. And we saw it with this coach. This isn't like buying Dameon Pierce stock. We saw it. So maybe I'm overdoing it with the penny stock, as I call it, or just how high I am on Christian Harris. But I'm high on Christian Harris. I'm very high on
high-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
I'm buying Christian Harris stock, and I think D'Amico's excited about it. And I think it might be one of those pleasant surprises early on in camp. Now, am I going to sit here and bet that Christian Harris is healthy? That's the dangers of it. But the potential of what he can do when he's the best version of himself and he's on the field, sign me up for it. It's top 10. I haven't seen enough from either one of the Iowa State receivers to put him ahead of him. Some people would say, well, why not Jalen Petrie? I mean, I know Christian Harris, the biggest question is health. We've seen Jalen Petrie in that role, which is a very dangerous role for someone that size. We've seen Jalen Petrie got hurt in that role as well. We also saw Jimmy Ward perform well in that role. Also wonder if the amount of snaps had something to do with the fact there was no Christian Harris. We initially wondered, okay, they're not playing as much traditional defense. Is the Jalen Petrie role, is that kind of a reaction to that? Would that have happened? And maybe it's a blessing in disguise because obviously they like it enough to where they gave Jalen Petrie the extension this offseason. But last year, heading into the season, we were talking. If you would have told me someone's going to get an extension on defense and it's going to be because D'Amico Ryans puts him in the right spot, I would have thought Christian Harris is breaking bread. You would have thought too. And nothing we saw takes away from that. We're just kind of sleeping on him. Now, what do they think of him? What are they going to do? Who knows? But I think D'Amico kind of lights up when he talks about Christian Harris. Keeping it real gone wrong last year with not talking about the actual injury. But I'm buying the Christian Harris stock. Are you? Are you buying the Christian Harris penny stock? I'm in it. Last year I thought it was a little expensive. But I'm taking Christian Harris. Contract year, already seen it. Already seen it. If Christian Harris is think about how good you think this defense is right now. Because I think even the most diehard Texans fan, the ones who follow it the most, a lot of people in the chat and that watch and listen to S&L every day. You're really high on this defense. You're not even taking into account Christian Harris. And that's probably the smart move if he hadn't been able to stay on the field. But just go back to what he was doing at the end of the 2023 season and put that guy on this defense with the surroundings. That's scary. That's scary. And it's based on a huge if, massive if, probably the worst if that you can have. But it's also based on what you've seen. I didn't put Jalen Noel in here. I think Jalen Noel is going to be a fantastic player eventually. I didn't put Jaden Higgins in here. He looked pretty good at Iowa State. Highly regarded. And he had some good moments with CJ Stroud in minicamp. But I didn't put them in there because I haven't seen it on a Sunday. I've seen Christian Harris on a Sunday be arguably the best player on the defense. I've seen it. Saw D'Amico Ryans go up to him against Cleveland and say, hey, watch for this. And he had the pick 6. Saw him against the Titans where he was just the absolute dog on the field. The nastiness, all that. It's there. And he's also fighting for his life. Fighting for his life. He's fighting for his NFL life. So you go from what D'Amico was saying last year to what he's saying now. I would buy the Christian Harris stock. I am. I'm buying it. Where did I get it the most wrong? Resetting the top 10 list 10-1 during the season of lists. Number 10, Christian Harris. Number 9, Christian Kirk. Number 8, CJ Gardner-Johnson. Number 7, Kamari Lassiter. Number 6, CJ Stroud. Number 5, Joe Mixon. Number 4, Daniil Hunter. Number 3, Nico Collins. Number 2, Will Anderson. Number 1, the least controversial of all, Derek Stingley. And you look at this, we have 6 defensive guys and 4 offensive guys. The one that I am the least committed to, I think 8 through 10 could go a number of ways. We don't know how the CJ Gardner-Johnson thing goes. Again, the surroundings are great. The Christian Kirk thing, who knows? Are the injuries there? Do one of the Iowa State guys overtake him? And the Christian Harris thing, obviously the biggest if is the injuries. The Kirk thing is interesting because I don't think any of these guys, like at their own positions, are really threatened to get overtaken. Now, maybe Stingley and Lassiter have some friendly competition, but I think Derek Stingley's obviously the best one there. Now, Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, that could go a number of ways, but I don't compare. They'll both be doing their thing at the same time on the field. I don't think there's a threat to overtake Nico as the number 1 receiver. Mixon, I don't think they have enough depth at running back for him to be overtaken. I'm getting to a point here. CJ Gardner-Johnson, without Jimmy Ward, there's not a lot of depth. you could easily see a scenario where Christian Kirk gets kind of pushed back with one of these rookie receivers. It's not a bad scenario, especially given the fact that Knowles, another guy who does some damage in the slot, and Higgins can kind of move around. They like his versatility. So the wide receiver thing is interesting. You have a guy who you feel great about, and then you have a guy that I think you feel okay about. They obviously feel really good about. And then you have those guys kind of creeping up, the young bucks, the young dudes at wide receiver. So it's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be an interesting camp. I can't wait. We'll give you the full depth breakdown of everything going on. We watch the whole practice. We break it down for you on S&L. We break it down here. And we got you covered. DJ Amazing says, can't wait to see you at training camp. Yeah, holler at me if you're out there. I know there's over a handful of open practices. Always good to see some of the folks. Primetime says he's catch me at the 49ers game. It's booked and ready to go. It's a good one to come to. They're probably going to roll deep too. 49ers roll pretty deep. They're roll pretty deep. Rob says, just watch our last two playoff exits and you'll see why we need a coverage linebacker badly. Between CJ and EJ, Nick covered that. Made sure it ain't coming again. I really think that I don't think it was a linebacker that was the problem against KC. I know what you're saying. I think the fact that Petrie and Jimmy Ward were out was kind of the bigger problem, because both of those guys in the roles that they were playing, and they both did it at a really good level. Jimmy Ward's actually done it at an elite level the year before he came here. But I think it was as much to do with your two nickels being out. The problem now is you're not going to have the Jimmy depth. We don't think. Who knows? Anything can happen. They really haven't made a decision, so maybe they'll just let that play out. But you have maybe two guys that can do that role with Petrie. And then I like Reed, but I don't know if he's ready to do it yet. Now he is doing the Jalen Petrie practices, and it is kind of his ideal role. Jalen Reed out of Penn State, the guy I asked at the combine about his fascination with the Texans. But I thought it was going to be really good if you had three guys who could do it. But I'm with you. You obviously need to cover better than Azeez Al-Shire. I don't know if Christian Harris, there's inconsistency in the coverage with him sometimes. Sometimes he's a little bit too aggressive, but he's definitely athletic. You know, Christian Harris has actually only been playing linebacker for 7 years. He had never played it before he went to Alabama. He was actually like a wide receiver, H-back, DB in Baton Rouge of all places before he went to Bama. So he's a little bit raw, but he's extremely athletic. But yeah, they definitely need better coverage. I'm not trying to be actually guy. I don't think it was as much roster mismanagement as it was just kind of the way things go sometimes with the injuries. The safety problem was a rough thing. Someone in the chat asks, do we have Tank in 2 years? I don't know. I mean, where does he fit in? Like, he wasn't really thriving last year with Slowick before getting hurt. I don't know if you could say that he lost a step or not, but I mean, the production had definitely dipped, and he did have an injury 2 years ago too. Then he had this injury, which is a terrible injury, multiple injuries. And you drafted 2 wide receivers who are probably going to be a part of things for a while. So what's the role? I don't know. I mean, if Tank Dell goes out on a football field and stretches, this is the thing that I'm going to keep saying, because I know that he's trying to come back and stuff. Good for him, man. He should feel good and all that. But like, if he just comes out on a football field, pause, and stretches and even practices, then that's a blessing in disguise given what he went through. So I don't know if Tank Dell is back in 2 years or not. We'll see. But I also don't know what it looks like if Higgins, Knoll, and Nico Collins are still doing their thing. So there's that. Yeah, Rob is right. Swarm the like button. That would be much appreciated. But that's where we're at. And training camp is 16 days away. So we can get rid of this speculation. I think Caserio is going to be out there at 8:30. Going to have to ask him about Jimmy Ward. How they handling it. I'm sure he'll have a generic answer for that. And then he's just going to give you some GM speak, some good old Nick Caserio GM speak. He'll be ready to go. And we will as well. We're getting through this together. No days off. And the season of lists. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Shout out to Bob Tack again. Be sure to give them a call if you need safety supplies, anything, like really any business. 409-744-8225. Bobtack.com. And always remember, whether you agree with the list, whether you disagree with the list, pretty soon there won't be any lists because training camp will be upon us. And regardless, we're all in this together. Appreciate y'all for rolling through.
Opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number one. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk, yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize, every angle's what we really do. We the source, we the pulse of the city too.